Welcome to the Present and Sober podcast with your hosts, Sam Goldfinch and Ellie Crow. If you want to make your life bigger, not smaller, then this is the podcast for you. If you can sense that you're destined for more and you're curious about how drinking could be holding you back, listen in and come on this journey with us. Through the interplay of mind and body practices, we will help you elevate your daily life and discover the wonder and potential of going alcohol-free. Let's make life bigger together.
I mean, it was like a seminal moment. I feel like a connection was made as I was able to not abandon myself in a moment of extreme pain.
Hey team, another amazing week and another amazing guest. We've got Kate Baily with us this week. Now Kate is one half of Love Sober. The other half of Love Sober is Mandy Manners. And recently, Kate and Mandy have written an amazing book called Love Your Sober Year. Now, I won't go into too much detail because Kate's going to talk all about that during the podcast. She's going to give us a background into how Love Sober came to be. But I will say this, we've recently been having a lot of requests for conversations around the change of seasons, what to do in the lead up to Christmas, and for many of us, you know, it's autumn right now. And Kate is a fantastic person to talk to that. So we cover a lot of ground around seasonal changes, things we can do. We explore elements of the book, and for anyone who is drawn to it, it's going to be a fantastic resource. So make sure you check out the link to that and everything in the show notes. Awesome. All right, that's everything from me. Make sure you come and join us if you haven't already for the remaining Sober October insight sessions that we're running in the Facebook group. You basically just get to rock up on a Tuesday and just come and kind of experience a live podcast, which is pretty cool. Right, team. Love you all. See you on the podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Present and Sober podcast. We have got a very special guest today. We've got the lovely Kate Baily from Love Sober with us. Hello, Kate. How are you?
Kate.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here. I'm sober and I'm present. So, you know.
Well, that's the two prerequisites, so you're in.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. You?
It's so lovely to have you here. And we're really excited about this conversation. We were fortunate enough to get a little sneak preview of your little baby, your new book, which is just delightful. And it's been a real pleasure to have a leaf through, and I'm really excited to share it here with our listeners. So before we get into that, could we just get a little bit more about you, just a little intro for our listeners? So anybody that hasn't yet come across Love Sober and doesn't know who you are, if you can just let us know, how you've ended up in this space in the first place would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Ellie. Yes, so I co-founded Love Sober, which is a community interest company with Mandy Manners it became official in 2019, but we were kind of working behind the scenes before that. And yeah, Love Sober is essentially a space to support women with alcohol use disorder in a really sort of positive framework for sobriety. We have a podcast, Love Sober podcast. Well, Mandy actually doesn't do that anymore. She's gone more into different avenues of sort of therapeutic space and coaching, but I still do that. I am a sober coach. I'm a wellbeing coach, and I'm an author as well of 2 books. So, and, the way I ended up in this space, I guess, I always say necessity is the mother of invention, really. And I found myself, I've been on the sober path or recovery, depending on how what language you want to use, for 9 years. And my sober streak is 6 years and 3 months.
Wow.
So I'm delighted with that. It feels like a long time and a really short time as well. It's funny how time goes once you've been doing it a while. So so I found myself, in my early 40s with 2 young children, very isolated in a new town, and I'd always used alcohol as that kind of way to, socialize. I had questioned it because I knew that it affected my mental health. I knew that it exacerbated anxiety. I also kind of knew that I was using it as a way of coping with that anxiety for many, many years, but I didn't have the tools to not do. And it was that kind of, we talk about grey area drinking, now in the sober sphere, don't we? And it was that thing where it kind of looked just about normal to the outside. So, there were no real indicators from the outside flagging it up. There was just that kind of confusing internal space. And I got to that point, like I said, about 9 years ago. And I tried various things, and I found Soberistas online forum. And it was the first place that I thought, okay, that is not scaring the living daylights out of me. It looks positive. I can fit here, and that was it really. That was the beginning of my journey. So forever grateful to Soberistas who are 10. They've got their 10th birthday this year, so it's wonderful.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really cool. I love it. And there are so many things that are important in this journey, and community is like it's right up there. Just as you said, to be able to fit into a space and not be terrified by it. So I love that was your way in, and now that you're able to offer, the same, that same like wrapping of the arms around people in many different ways, including this book, which is just fabulous. I was reading it on the train yesterday, and there's some beautiful illustrations, and there is so much ground covered. It's so comprehensive, and it feels like having it does feel like a little arm around you, actually. It's like having this, a little companion for the way. And I love how many uses it has, and how you can approach it many, many different ways. So before we delve into the meat of it, could you just give us a little bit of background as to how this particular book came into fruition, and what it's all about, and then we can delve into some of the detail.
Thanks, Ellie. We are super proud of this book, and I think, like you said, when I opened the box, when the publisher sent us the first copies, I just clapped my hands and I was squealing, and I was just saying, it is so beautiful, because it really is. And that's what we wanted. And the publishers have done a really amazing job with it, because we wanted it to feel really precious, sort of practical and precious. That's the thing. And the way it sort of came about, I'd sort of point out that it's not quitlit. There's a lot of quitlit, and we have written a quitlit title. That was our first book, which is called Love Yourself Sober. Little plug there. But this is very much, we know as sort of coaches and sober people that we go through various stages in sobriety and recovery on that journey. If anyone's listening in, that sort of stages of change cycle, from contemplation, maintenance. So we felt that this is very much this maintenance sort of piece. It was like, you can get sober, but what next? And how do we stay sober? How do we love being sober? And that's where I love to work personally, is in that space, which is, okay, we've got some of the early muscle power there, and now let's get freaking excited and explore. And once we unhook from those kind of limiting, destructive, narrowing effects of alcohol, and have some of that healing on board and some of that muscle power, and it's feeling, less like an effort, it feels like life is a menu, it's just so expansive. And so that's where the book idea came from. It came from this widening appreciation of, nature's cycles, of how we manage our stress, how we light ourselves up in winter with lights, how we work with our cycles as women to so that we don't become overwhelmed and depleted. So it was like, okay, how do we have a really comprehensive toolkit that actually feels good to use. That was the idea behind it. Let's make this lush, mate. Let's make this fun, because we don't stop drinking to feel shit, do we? Excuse me, I don't.
No, you can swear as much as you like here. Don't worry
Actively
about it.
encouraged.
I won't drop the
Yeah.
C-bombs.
Very welcome.
But yeah, so we stop drinking to feel better, don't we?
Yeah.
We want to feel better and feel like life is exciting and it's there for us to explore.
Oh, it's amazing to hear that. Like we're with the mission that me and Ellie are on, we're so aligned with that. A lot of the stuff that we create is about that. But like, how do you joyfully stay stopped, and how does it become this gift? And all those things on the menu. I love the way you said that, Kate. Because there's so much stuff on the menu, you don't even know it's there. The menu just keeps expanding and expanding, with every year more gets added to it. It's just kind of like this infinite menu of goodies, right? And yeah, I want to honor the fact that it's not quit lit. I love quit lit. I mean, I gobbled it up back early in my sort of like alcohol-free journey years ago now. I read so much, but actually I really honor anybody who takes on the task of putting together. It's kind of like having a coach with you, or having it's like you use different models in the book, and it's clearly built on your principles that you see as being very, very powerful. And I think that's a real undertaking. Not that, memoirs and kind of all those things are incredibly powerful too, and I think having a mix of all of those is great. But can you tell us a bit about some of these models that you've used in the book? Because you talk about panarchic theory, you talk about seasons, you talk about the stages of change. It's really exciting. I'd love to know a bit more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, so well, Mandy and I, we love theory, where we're quite sort of like, delving into all the kind of cycles and the neuroscience and the I love the science of happiness, evolutionary theory. We do a lot of, I trained with a woman called Irene Lyon, who, with the neurobiology of stress, polyvagal theory, blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit of indulging us in that kind of our extreme sort of nerdism around how
love it.
what we like. But actually we got very, very excited when we started to look, as we use the framework of the seasons, because we want, we talked to our publisher about writing something as a kind of a yearbook, and you could do it in various ways. And I've always, when I was a kid, I loved anything to do with nature. Anyway, I won't go on about that. That's way back. But when we started to really look, and we started to continue our studies, we kept coming back to this kind of cyclical nature that there is. I mean, both of us returned to drinking after a year, so that we knew there was something about significant there, and then we stopped again. Both of us. We were like, that's weird. Both of us, and we have felt sort of anecdotally on sober forums that every time there was a new season, every time there was about 3 months past, people would kind of flatline and go, oh my God, what now? What now? And it was quite discomforting and disquieting. So we felt like there was something in the seasons. It's almost like you need a toolkit for each season. So there were these wider cycles, and then we looked at, Prochaska and De Clementi, which was the stages of change that we talked about. We talked to Alexandra Pope and Jani, I can't remember her surname, who from the Red School, who work very closely with menopause and women's cycles. So we were like, okay, there's something around, monthly cycles for women. We need to honor the biology of women, because lots of people were getting triggered at certain times of the month. So we did a deep dive into that. And then we found this idea of the Panarchic Cycle, which was this, in the spring, summer, autumn, winter, having these qualities and processes that we recognized, and we built out our R4 balance method of this. So spring is like this season of growth. So we felt that this was a chance to kind of rest. We stop at that point. We stop drinking. Then we start to reignite, and this felt like the summer. We start to reignite our passions. Then we start to rewrite and release in autumn, and then we go back into rest and restore again in winter. And we really felt that fitted with what we do as, you know, in sobriety as well, because we stop doing the drinking, we go through a period of growth, we then have to reach this kind of maintenance phase, and then we have to kind of get rid of stuff that isn't working from that, and then we go into a new cycle of growth. So yeah, we sort of tied it all together. And you know, it sort of makes sense really when you consider that we are mammals. You know, we're primates, aren't we? So I know we like to think we're kind of not, but of course we're going to be governed by some of these, you know, wider cycles at work, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, right? Ellie and I are often talking about this kind of intelligence that we're connected to, that because we have the power of thought, we imagine ourselves as separate from it all. Like, but when you look out the window, it's very clear to you that all of nature is deeply connected, and yet somehow we kind of make up this story that we're not.
Yeah.
And so like, however deep you want to go into it, just at that level, it simplifies it, and it makes a lot of sense to me, for sure.
Yeah, and essentially, you know, like I said, we kind of, you know, there is a deep dive into lots of different, what we did personally in terms of different kind of models and theories, but we wanted to just crystallize it to make it very practical and comforting. So it's like you then have a toolkit for each season. And once we have a toolkit, once we can meet our sensory needs, once we can meet our stress needs, once we can, you know, work with the boundaries or our fluctuating energy levels, we can harness the gifts as well. So it's almost like it's a kind of tool to get calm enough and present in our life to then go, well, what are the gifts of this particular time of year? You know, and how do, you know, when I discovered, how do you say, is it Hugo? Like Hugo, which is the Danish art of happiness. I mean, I spent a good, 1 year, I was really happy the kids had gone back to school. I was like, thank God, yes. You know, that is not a holiday. Let's not call that holiday, which again, you know, summer being that burnout time when we're fiercely social, fiery energy, you know, that's got a seasonal element to it, right? So autumn, okay, let's just settle down. And I was like, permission to candle, permission to hot chocolate, permission to read books and get socks on. And it felt so nurturing, you know. So it's like about harnessing the gifts, managing the stresses of each season.
Yeah. I love that word that you used, comforting, because that's exactly what it is. It's so much needed. I had an appointment with my acupuncturist this week, and I was just saying to her, like, about, because I love this season, I love the autumn, and I love everything that you did. I was getting all excited about the candles and the hot chocolate and the socks and the boots and the big jumpers and all of that. Yeah. Yes, I love it. And I was saying to her about, she's very wise, my acupuncturist, and she's like my guru. And I was saying to her, like, you know, Sam knows I'm going through this whole perimenopausal business. And so he's along for the ride, and he's absolutely loving being involved in it and learning along the way with me. And I've had a lot of issues with tiredness and fatigue, and some of that I'm, you know, going through the process of taking hormones for and what have you. And I was saying to my acupuncturist, I still feel really tired. And we had this lovely conversation where she was reminding me of, like, yeah, but we're heading into that season. We're heading into that season where it is a winding down. We're not supposed to be exerting energy in the same way. It's a conservation period. And so at a really basic and simple level, I was talking to her about, like, my routine, and she was suggesting shifting. So I would normally do my physical yoga practice at the end of the day, and she said, try doing it earlier in the day. So your kids, and your youngest is now at school, so take the recording of the class and do it earlier in the day and see how you feel. But it's all of these little elements that make up how we navigate through the day and how the days make the weeks and so on. If you don't have any kind of, like, people on your wellness team, then certainly in my first year of sobriety, I'm just going, like, I'm kind of being led by my nose and just going and finding the things that feel good and accumulating them. But what's wonderful about your book is that it's like encompassing all this stuff. It's like bringing in the best of the best from all these different areas, all as food for thought, so that people can have that variety of different things to try this on, see how it feels. And then that, if you want to go deeper into something, you've got that inroad, you've got that breadcrumb to follow. So I just think it's a marvelous piece of work. This is like, the companion that you want through your first year of sobriety is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. And I love what you said about that day, making tweaks in your daily routine, and it's about sort of almost a permission and an expanding kind of skill set, muscle capacity to live intentionally, essentially. Yes. Isn't it? So it's like, once we get rid of the alcohol, we can start to see, and obviously it's got to be baby steps at first, really just getting through the day, getting through the trigger times. And as we get more, I mean, what I think this kind of, it's important to have that kind of awareness. Like you said, your acupuncturist said, well, actually, you need to be working with your energy levels, because actually, if we get overwhelmed and depleted and we don't know about these things, they're huge triggers, and we can get derailed. So there's a real sober practicality to it, but there's also that deeper kind of wellness journey, like you were saying, that sense of wonder, a sense of well-being, a sense of calm, about being able to access beauty, joy, those gifts. And the secret of success is hidden in our daily routine, because those days add up, those cycles add up. Every morning I go out and I go, oh, it's such a good time to be intentional and just say, thank God I'm not hungover. Another beautiful, is this a day, is a possibility, not hungover, to really harness that, turn towards that moment, rinse that moment,
Yeah, and it's super powerful locking that in, that intention setting and remembering, because I mean, for me, so on the 1st of October it'll be 7 years. So to me, well done. Yeah, it's so cool. It's like you were saying, Kate, like it just gets to a point where, but actually remembering that, because thankfully things do fade. We heal and we move through things, and even more so, like when we're going on a journey of healing with the support of, with the tools that are in your book. But there's something magical about remembering what it was like sometimes, because those I love the mornings. Like, they're just the most glorious time of day for me, and I never used to even make them. Like they weren't a thing, because I was just either
only if you were up from the night before,
or rolling around feeling like crap, wishing them away, right? So what a gift. And I had a similar experience, actually. So I did 18 months alcohol free. I did a lot of traveling, a lot of really cool stuff in that time. But actually, there were a lot of ways in which I was hiding from myself too, and that I was using my adventures to do that. So on the outside, it looked like I was making my world bigger, but there were still all these rooms, and I didn't know how to open the doors. And I feel like a book like this is, if there are things in there that people feel really drawn to, or even if they're a bit like, oh, I feel a bit uncomfortable about that, that's a really key signal, because you just don't know until you try these things. Ellie's always talking about how cold therapy has become such a great friend for her, for example. And I love the heat, like I also love the cold, but exploring these things that are going to be uncomfortable, and knowing and having something that can guide you through some of those processes, I think is invaluable. And I was missing a lot of that early on. I was sort of fumbling around as well. So yeah, just to echo.
Yeah, me too as well. I think, they sort of talk about the layers, don't they? The layers of the onion, the layers of healing, because, we used it for a reason, right? And it worked till it didn't work.
Sure.
And I think part of that, you were talking about intentionality and reflection, and we do have those journaling prompts in each week, which is important. That's sort of the gift of being able to reflect. And we always say, Mandy and I talk about right brain, left brain. So you can do creativity, those feel good things. Lighten up that kind of inner child, lots of treats, rewards, but essentially also journaling and reflective practices is collecting evidence. If you're more of that kind of rational, it's like, okay, it's intel, what's working, what isn't, what do I shift, what do I need to adjust, so it's data keeping. So that's what we've tried to do with the book, is to kind of appeal to both and incorporate both of those sides, the practical and the kind of, like I said, the sort of the precious, the fun, creative, but they've got reasons behind them. And we used every single tool in the book when we were writing it. It was such a tough year. we were like, we had moving, we had social care involved with my family, we had all, it wasn't like rarefied, like, let's just sit here and just be this real perfect, sober writing. Do you know what I mean? It was like, no, it's shit's hitting the fan. We've had a really bad year. It was Brexit, and we could, anyway. So yeah, it's about real tools for real lives, but making it feel good. Hopefully that's the idea.
Yeah, and it absolutely does do that. And there was something really striking in one of the quotes that I read, that it really resonated with me, because I've said the same thing myself. And when you were talking about, like, wouldn't it be nice that you just, you go off to your writing cabin and you're surrounded by all of your blankets and your candles and you're just writing away for the year and it's all lovely. And you don't get that. What you get instead is actual life. And the quote, or part of the quote in the book, you say about making this decision to never abandon yourself again.
Mm.
And I've said that same thing about myself. Like, it's this decision to go alcohol free or become sober. It's a really radical decision, and it doesn't end with, like, you can replace alcohol with many other things, to numb yourself, to escape. And I think we all do that to some extent with, Real Housewives of insert place or whatever. But that knowing of what's going on there and being able to be intentional about, how we meet life. So in the case of, writing this wonderful book amidst a really turbulent, difficult time, like that, it's such a striking thing to, like, have that knowing that you've always got your own back. And it like, irrespective of what's going on out there, like, we're all going to be thrown so many challenges. There's going to be so many difficult life circumstances, but to have that, like, that steadfast knowing deep inside that you are okay and you're always going to be okay, and you can you have the strength and the resilience to work through whatever these things are. It's to me, it's the most beautiful thing that comes out of sobriety.
Yeah,
it's that, like, deep knowing, because and I'll often say this, like, we only have two things: the present moment and that knowing. Like, we don't have all of our relationships are transient. Everybody's gonna, either leave us or die. That's the only thing that we have: the present moment, right here, right now, and then that knowing.
Yeah, I love what you said about that kind of it's almost like that the decision to be alcohol free is that kind of fundamental act of self-love and self-care. For me too, and that stick in the sand, solid ground. It's like, I know I've tested it. Without that, the whole thing goes. For some reason, it is that foundational for me. And when you talk about that, having your own back, I think that was something that I really had to learn. That was what I didn't have. That was part of, it's like Gabor. Is it Gabor Mate or is it Anne Voskamp? No, I'm getting all my quotes mixed up about Johann Hari, connection, connection being the opposite of addiction. And I think what sounds like you're talking about there is connection to self, which is, for me, my route into that was, showing up for myself every day sober. That was like proof, hi again, Kate. Oh, we haven't gone anywhere. But there was an internal thing, and Tara Brach, she's a Buddhist psychologist, you know her. Yeah, her reign of self-compassion I did on Touchwood, my last day one. And it was like a seminal moment. I feel like a connection was made as I was able to not abandon myself in a moment of extreme pain and suffering. I was hungover. I was like, I've done it again. And I realized that when I drink or when I drank, it caused a disconnect from and it was the wrong tool, right? So it's a wrong tool for any kind of discomfort I was having. But yeah, it kind of caused that disconnect, and it was so painful, and it caused such a lot of shame that I couldn't actually find myself for a week. Once I'd sort of said to myself, I'm never going to do that, because I'm not going to leave little Kate again. I'm just not going to do that. I didn't really know what that was, but I was like, I'm not going to. It felt like, okay, I've got you in some really profound way. And I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I'd totally encourage people to check out, just that sort of self-compassion work. And Tara Brach is, if you struggle with that, Tara Brach's so great. Lots of stuff on YouTube with her. She helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, the first part of the program that we run when we do the first part is connection. And it's connection to ourselves, to others, to nature. And it's the foundational pieces of like curiosity, compassion, connection.
Yeah.
They, as you say, Kate, I have the exact same experience, but, I don't see it personally from my perspective. I have no interest in kind of demonizing alcohol or any of that. I'm all about truth, connection, what works for people, and for us all to make our own way. And I have the exact same experience, that I know that if I invite alcohol into my life in any way, I lose myself. And I'm just not prepared to do that. I'm just not prepared to do that. So it's really powerful to hear that. So me and Ellie were talking before the call that we thought it would be really nice, as we're moving into autumn now. We're literally, the leaves are quite literally changing in front of our eyes. I live right next to the park.
The knitwear's on. Yeah.
There it is. And I've got a big woolly jumper hanging in the corner somewhere. You can't see it. But if you were going to leave people with just a few things they can do, I'm sure people are going to, there's no doubt that a lot of people are going to go and search out the book after this. But what would you offer people as a few things to take into autumn, just to take that knitwear, not just literally, but metaphorically? How else can people wrap themselves up over the next couple of months?
Well, I'm now, because, I said I was really tired, autumn, all the things, kids going back to school. I'd say this, autumn is a transitional time, and we are depleted, I think, after the summer. So that opportunity, like your acupuncturist said, to that kind of rest and restore, slow down, if you can, is really important. It's also a time of balance, isn't it? It's like that. So between the sort of the summer and the winter, we go through that transition time of autumn. So, that really thinking about, what do I need to bring more balance into my life? That's a good question. I've just opened the book, actually, because my brain isn't particularly working today, as I've said. I opened it at autumn, and it's a picture of a candle, and it said, "Connecting with Nature." And a quote by John Muir that says, "Come into the woods, for here is rest." And it goes back to what you said, Sam, about this connection, going indoors, but also getting outside to connect with nature, to see. I said, I think I put in the book that autumn is like a fabulous old drag queen who's just like having a final fling before winter, right? And so, like, let's go celebrate the queen, right? Let's go worship. But the beautiful colours. It can be a very sensual time of year. You get that kind of damp, you get the cold, you get the colours, you get that sense of, I get that sense of landing in autumn. So I'd say definitely get out as well. You also, conversely, you might be that kind of person that has that seasonal affective disorder and feels slightly down in the autumn. And again, inviting that idea of balance. What do you need to light yourself up? What do you need to warm yourself? What do you need to bring the kind of cheer towards yourself? So it's kind of like having a little inquiry into kind of what kind of seasonal beast you are, really, and then how to bring balance in autumn. That's what I would say.
I love what you said there about what kind of seasonal beast you are. Like, so in Buddhism, they talk about having the mind of winter, the mind of spring, the mind of summer. And the thing is, if you're in autumn and you have the mind of summer, you're going to suffer, because it's not summer. So a lot of this is embracing it, even if we are somebody who has often said, oh, you know, I hate the winter, I hate the dark nights. We're setting ourselves up for a form of resistance because it is dark at 4 o'clock. Like no matter how much we wish it to be different, it's like that. So what are the gifts? What I'm hearing and what you're saying is like, what magic is there here for me to find? And the thing about intention is if you set yourself the intention of finding magic in autumn or winter, there will be some there to find.
Yeah. I love what you said, Sam. It is. It's kind of going with it rather than fighting. And because where there is suffering, there will lead back to addictive behaviours. There'll be triggers there. So it's, you know, if we're to sort of say it in a kind of, I always say, like, I like things to look like magazines because I can be all really deep and woo, but essentially I want to go off and read Grazia as well.
So good.
Do you know what I mean? Let's keep it real. I want to watch Game of Thrones and read Grazia. But so it's almost like, what is my sober, like, and break it down. What's my sober autumn going to look like? My sober autumn, and bringing it back to sobriety. So remembering that we're expanding out, we're getting the toolkit out, we're growing, but always bringing it back to that foundation. And then what do I want in my sober autumn? How do I want to feel in my sober winter? You know, and framing it so we're expanding, but we're coming back to that central point that alcohol-free is that kind of foundation for us.
I love it. It's funny, I had a coaching call at the weekend with a bunch of people, and there's a lady that came on there, and she like big beaming smile, really happy. She must be getting on for, I don't know, 7 or 8 months alcohol free. And she said, you know what? I used to hate this time of year. Absolutely bloody hate it. But precisely what you were talking about, Sam, she's like, I'm embracing it. And I said, well, what else is there to do? Because we can't change it, right? We can't make the days any longer. We can't, you know, remove the darkness, you know, like it's all happening. And it was so wonderful to see just the, like, such a simple, again, radical act of self-care. I'm going to stop resisting this because it is, and I'm going to start to ease into it in a way that makes sense to me. And her whole demeanor was completely different. And then that sparked curiosity with a bunch of other people. Oh, hang on a minute. Well, I tend to say I hate the winter, I hate the cold, but what is there for me to know about it in my own experience? And it's just, it's such a, like, it changes everything, because this is where suffering comes from resisting what is. So I just love, like, the whole premise of your book, and the fact that people can kind of enter it, and because it's a cycle, they can enter it at any point in time. Like,
that's cool.
The way that you can use it, like, it's not, as we were talking about earlier, like, quit lit is fantastic, but this is not that. This is like a beautiful coffee table book that is there as your companion, that you can use as a resource to keep going back to. Like, it's wonderful. And I've been talking a lot this last couple of weeks, I suppose partly to remind myself as much as anybody else, about the importance of sober treats. So when you described earlier, like, that the book is both practical and precious, like, to me, well, there you go, there's your perfect sober treat. So go and treat yourself to this book and be able to find that ease that I was talking about with that client, to move through these seasons, irrespective of what kind of seasonal beast you are.
Oh, love that. Do you want to be our PR?
Available for hire.
What a lovely thing to say. I'm so, thank you. I'm so absolutely delighted that, that you are the people who are, finding it, who are loving it, basically. It really touches my heart. Thank you.
You're super welcome. Like, it's much needed. We were having a conversation, a bunch of us, a few weeks ago, about just what is missing in this space. And sometimes it's so hard to see it because you're in it all the time. Like the whole, you can't see the wood for the trees. And then, we got in touch about the book, and then I heard the title of it and we got really excited. And then I looked at it and was like, well, this is it. This is what's missing. So, kudos to you and congratulations. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Ellie.
So, hey, is there anything else, Kate, that you would just love to say to our listeners, or any kind of message that you'd like to give people before we tie a bow on this? I feel like this won't be the last conversation that we have, but is there
I
anything
hope
else you'd love to
not.
say? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, keep going, the best, that I feel like what we do, what I needed in early sobriety, and what I needed the first year, what I even needed the second year, and what I need when life gets tough, because life is impactful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is that kind of messages of hope from people. I need to huddle with other people, and I need people further along to give me hope. And I know, I have some friends who've been sober for 20 odd years, and they are huge sources of comfort and hope. So I just hope that in some way, this is helping and this is giving some hope. That we all do that, aren't we? We're like a flock of geese. Someone on Sobristas once said it was like we're, like you have that V of geese, and what happens is you got one at the front, and when they get tired, they go to the back, and another one takes over.
Oh, that's cool.
And it feels like that. I'm absolutely knackered now, so I'm going to be at the back. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's just that hope and that connection. So.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Keep going. The best is yet to come.
What a message. I love that so much. And also, so where can people find the book? I see it's on Amazon. You've got the website there, but tell us about socials and all those kinds of things.
Oh yeah. So Love Sobers on Instagram is lovesober.cic. That's community interest company. Go, what's that? So that's why that is. I'm also Kate Baily Coach. So I've got a sort of separate old one and the Love Sober. The website is the best place to find everything, really. That's lovesober.com. And like I said, we've got a podcast, there's books on there, there's a blog on there, there's courses for long-term sobriety as well. There's a very small community, a secret Facebook group which run their own peer support meetings. A fantastic bunch of women. If you want to get in touch with Mandy, she's at mandymanners.com. So that's where you can find us. Awesome. And the book's available everywhere, basically. If you're in the UK, if you're in the States, and internationally, it's published in 1st of November. But in the UK, it's kind of everywhere. So.
Awesome. So something for our American friends to look forward to too. Wonderful.
Awesome.
I'm going to join you at the back of the geese line. I'm going to be back there as well because I'm bloody knackered as well.
Yeah.
So you can read Grazia. I'll watch some Real Housewives of wherever. Dubai's on at the minute. Should see their houses.
Yeah. Hell yeah. They're like
Sam,
in there.
Sam, you're up front.
In the summer. Yeah.
I'll go up front for a bit. You two can chill out in the back and watch. Well, Kate, thanks so much for coming on again. And as I say, I look forward to the next conversation. I have a funny feeling we've got a lot that we could talk about over the next, over the coming years. So thanks again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Isn't it just such an amazing thing to reflect on how, we're part of nature. We absolutely are. There's going to be no way that we're not, both in conscious and unconscious ways, affected by the change of seasons. And we're kind of disconnected from that. So we all hope that in some small way this conversation has opened up some curiosity for some of us in and around this. And make sure you go check out Kate and Mandy's book. Awesome. Have an amazing autumnal week wherever you happen to be. Let us know any of the awesome things you decide to invite in or anything you've taken away from the podcast. And if you've been really inspired, go leave us a review. See you soon.